So in this video I want to talk about one of the themes in Final Fantasy XIV that really caught my eye, and that is of the thing about the live stream and the thing about these elementals. First of all, I find it very interesting how this whole Gridanian nation state is very forest-like, is very druid-like in nature, just as this seer, which she calls herself. She just looks like a druid. I find it amazing that they are, because as I said, I did some research on Final Fantasy XIV before coming into the game, because I saw some of the cinematics and I saw Magitech, and I saw robots, and I saw like religious like figure names and Shiba and whatnot. I was like, what the hell is this? And I realized that most of the descriptions said they put a lot of religions from the world into the game. So seeing this druid like a sense of Gridania, and in these cinematics, I found it completely amazing. They completely captured this druid like nature, and so for the ancient Celts, the idea of having a world of the living and a world of the dead was very present, and it's sort of what she is talking about here. For the Celts, there was this world of spirit which was present simultaneously as the world of the living, and their idea of death was that once someone passed away, they would go into this world of the spirit, this world of the dead, and then they would come back again to life in a cycle of rebirth or reincarnation. And for the Celts, everything had a spirit. The animals had a spirit, even the trees had a spirit. But in its core, their idea was that there was this world of the non-physical, which is something that Final Fantasy manages to put forward amazingly. So here the seer goes on to talk about these quote-unquote elementals, which are these non-physical beings who are made of pure ether. She makes the difference between humans and these elementals. Their words do not reach our ears because they are in a different space, in a different sort of plane, and the way that these druid-like figures, like the seer, communicate with these elementals is through quote-unquote feelings. It's the whole idea of feelings and emotions, of being made of pure ether. Now, what they are doing here is sort of explaining or defining the idea of souls. If you go into the actual research on souls and the paranormal and auras and whatnot, a lot of people who can see through the veil of the real physical world, they say that these auras, the souls of people, have colors, they have vibrations, they communicate through emotion. When I saw the cinematic in the game, I was in awe that the game was going here, and as I've been saying, a lot of people think this is just fantasy, this is just some concepts from the Celts and whatnot, but as I said, there are some real theories suggesting that there's this such world of non-physical. Now, in the talking about the Celtics, talking about the forest-like nature, and you know, this I wouldn't say primitive, but I would say more, not more, but early societies, which all believe in this world and non-physical. And now, you know, when you think about it, you say, oh, okay, they were just primitive societies, they didn't know what to make of the world, so they just thought that everything had some sort of spirit and whatnot. Of course, this is related to the idea of Plato, that the world of forms, the world of the ideal, and as I've been talking about this before. But how did they manage to find all of this? How did they came up with all of this? It was through the use of entheogens. Going through the forest, they would find these endogenous herbs and plants that would take them to other worlds and take them to this world of the quote-unquote non-physical, which this game portrays as the world of ether. And there are these elementals in this world, these different sort of more encompassing conscious beings which reside on the other side. Now, this seems like such a far-fetched idea and whatnot, but if you Google entheogens and you do your own research, you're gonna find that the reports are speaking about the same thing, and it's either people hallucinating the same thing in masses, or perhaps there's some truth to it, and there's something underlying the world which our current research and our mythologies and our fantasies are starting to explore. So in the narrative of the game, as I said, narrative is one thing and the mythos is another thing, but they connect so well in Final Fantasy XIV. I really like when this happens. So in the narrative of the game, Ishtola, she conjured some sort of a spell where she went into this quote-unquote Lifestream, which is this world of the non-physical. Now, is the Lifestream the world of Aether? Is it the same thing, or is it like a different astral plane? Is it like a bardo, the place between the living and non-living, where the Ascians maybe escape when they manage to become immortal? It's all these things that are into play, and as I said, there are real theories about this. But in any case, she conjured this highly complicated and perhaps dangerous a spell where she went into the Lifestream. What this means is that she dissolved into the Aether, just like many characters in Final Fantasy when they give everything and they just dissolve into the Aether. This conception of death is just so fantastic. I really like how Final Fantasy manages this concept of death. I'm gonna be making a video at some point. This game is a memento mori. All of the characters, a lot of these characters give their life for this higher good, for this higher concept, for this higher purpose. And the way that they manage their passing is so fantastic, because they have this world of Aether, this world of the non-physical. Nobody really dies. They just go back to the source. They just go back to the primordial form, and then they come back and forward, and the whole thing with the primals. But in the case of this very complicated spell Ishtola did, probably killed her. And by other definition, she is dead. She is practically dead. She is in this Lifestream, just floating away. Even when she comes back, she says something about being a little bit dizzy from being in the Lifestream, being in the world of non-physical. So she gave herself up. She put herself into this bardo, and she put Tancred as well, but Tancred just emerged. So it's like this in-between life and death place where they can go in through the use of this spell. This concept is so fantastic because, you know, in real studies, in real research, there are these concepts as well, where you go when people are going through anesthesia, where people are going through a state of coma. Some of the reports that people are coming back from these experiences that are starting to be researched are quite interesting, and they relate to some other altered states of consciousness, like I've been saying, entheogens, and even near-death experiences. It's so interesting because the game is managing a concept that a real research is starting to figure out, but the way that the game does it in such an artistic, such a fantasy heavy way, it's just so good. It's the reason why this game is what it is right now. And even though it can be a little bit annoying, and I even meme about it, going through all the story and just the useless dialogues, when they give you these little pieces, these little perhaps reminders of truth, it's a thing of beauty. So in the narrative they need some sort of Aether-like Ishtola. They say that they cannot talk to them, the seer and these children, when they are to perform this ritual, which I found so interesting, this druid-like ritual. In the literature it is told, it is known that children are closer to this non-physical state because when they haven't been in this earthly plane as long as adults, so children have this special connection. The younger they are, the more connected they are to this non-physical realm where everything comes from. And this is why they use the children. It's kind of random in a way in Final Fantasy. They do this sort of far-fetched cinematics sometimes that they sometimes use, but in the case, so they do this ritual and they need some Aether like Ishtola. So out of nowhere there's this sister from Ishtola, they bring her, they begin the ritual, and they literally materialize Ishtola into the earthly plane again after she was lost. As I said, she's practically dead, and they bring her back from this in-between space, from this bardo, as I've been talking about, this in-between realms. But the thing that I really like about the lore in Final Fantasy is that they explain exactly what's going on here, and they are trying to explain all these themes and all these ideas that, as I've been saying, some of the new research is starting to try to explain and try to conceptualize in a more rational and even scientific manner. Now, the idea of having to have Aether akin to Stola is the whole concept of data. In this world of the non-physical, in this world of Aether, it's like a huge database. It's non-physical. So if you go again into the literature, into the research of altered states of consciousness, they speak about this realm of data. They call it the akashic records. They call this. So there is this theory of the unified field of consciousness, and there are these akashic records where everything is recorded, every scene, everything. And people, when they go into this altered state of consciousness, they say, yeah, you can go in time, you can look at events from your life, from other lives, from the past, from the future. There's no time in this non-physical plane. So the idea that data is needed to reminisce or to bring someone from this quote-unquote live stream is so interesting. So once they get the code from akin to Stola, which is her sister, they managed to do the ritual and bring her back from the dead, from this bardo in between. Now, everything is so specifically explained in the game that it sort of got me thinking in some of the real theories on how things work. And if you once I went within the game, you go when you're doing the Tataru quest where she wants to become like a summoner, a conjurer, something like that. You go into this would you start the Arcanimum? I cannot even remember what it was, but it's basically the study of the arcane, and they explain to you that they try to research what is at the core of the world, the mathematical code of reality, something of that nature. So this is something that I am loving about the game. They're taking all these fantasy themes that people already knew about, because we've been talking about the light, the non-physical world, the gods and demigods, and the arcane and magic and how things work, and the Elder Scrolls and these worlds of convoluted realities. But what Final Fantasy does is that they try to explain everything in a more rational way, and everything is perfectly connected to each other. And I personally have been finding these cinematics and these little concepts that are here and there very interesting and very useful to my own real life research on these things. So this concept of the live stream is very interesting. I'm not sure what they're really talking about here. If this live stream is the Aether source where people go when they complete their cycle, as the science explained to you at some point, this plane of non-physical, the place that you go when you die, this place of pure ether. Is it the source? Is it the only place? Or is it like in the real theory about these things where there are different bardos and different planes of reality? Perhaps one of them is where the Ascians go when they achieve this quote-unquote immortality, or perhaps there are others where everything, where these elementals, for example, exist. I'm not sure what they are talking about really. I'm sure they explain a little bit later, because little by little they give you pieces of the story, and it's all very existential, very interesting when you go into this cosmic plane, when you talk to Heidelin and when you confront the words of darkness and you start understanding about these parallel worlds and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure in Shadowbringers they explain the whole thing about the reflections and whatnot. It's quite convoluted, but at the same time, as I said, it all sort of makes sense. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, this game is, as I said, it is a memento mori. The way that they approach some themes of meaning, of friendship, of caring about improving the world, and all these little things in between the confronting mortality is so amazing, with all these characters just doing the final sacrifice for whatever good of Eorzea you are doing. It's something that I find absolutely fantastic, and it's really what, as I said in the video where I speak about why is the game so successful, it's something that our generation, our current society needs, because we live in this wholly nihilistic society. Just bringing these ideas of meaning, bringing these ideas to sort of confront all these existential issues that plague our current generation, is something so needed in our current society. But as I said, you know, this quote-unquote, this fantasy, quote-unquote, fiction, go to some research, go into the research of altered states of consciousness. As I said, the whole concept of the echo and going to the past and to the future, they are, I don't know if this was, as I said, as I've been saying about these games, I don't know if the developers are really, I mean, I would think if they're gonna make a game about these things, they would go into the research, but I don't know if they do this on purpose, or if it's just a happy coincidence, a happy synchronicity, as Carl Gustav Jung started to talk about, and the collective consciousness is actually connected. So all these fantasies, all these narratives are coming at a time where we need it the most, and everything, you know, in this, as I said, this real concept of the unified field of consciousness, of the collective consciousness, is really something that we are needing, and these games are starting to approach just as a real life research. So yeah, if you really like the lore of Final Fantasy, and if you go through the actual research, you're gonna find out that perhaps reality is literally larger than fiction, and what this game is doing to sort of ignite that little seed in people is something truly amazing. If you would like to know more about the lore surrounding these fantasy narratives and how they perhaps connect to real life theories and philosophies, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, as I will try to find these connections and explore the possibilities that these lores can provide. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.